Oh boy, you are stuck between the overindulgence of Christmas with family members. Some you love, some you hate. And you're in that nether region now because now next week you've got New Year's coming up, amateur night, where everybody goes out, takes their lives into their own hands, thinks they're invincible, drinks too much, suffers through a 4 or 5 day hangover to start off the new year. Do you want to be that person? You don't want to be that person. But for now, as you are just getting over the Christmas issues, heading into the New Year's issues, you probably thought, well, I can go out Friday night. I got a little bit of a buffer zone between the two. Overindulge again. Now you got the headache. Now you got the nausea. And that is what I'm here for. Yes, normally it would be me, the maestro Kevin Crane, along with your Uncle Dave, the conquistador Dave Height. Holidays have conspired not only against you, but against us. With the way Christmas and New Year's are falling, he's taken a couple weeks off for family duties. So you're stuck with me. No cool special effects this week, maybe next week. You just get me barking in your ear. Get up, you lazy bum. Get into the kitchen, make some coffee, fry up the eggs, fry up the bacon and the sausage, take a couple aspirin, and get ready for your Saturday morning hangover cure, the weekend edition of Sports Frenzy 2.0. Now, I'm kind of caught in a quandary here, a conundrum, if you will. I have to kind of be cognizant of the fact that once 2025 starts and your Uncle Dave gets back, he will have books he wants to review that I have read. So those are kind of off limits. There are some music things that we are going to review together, so I have to kind of stay away from those as well. And if you guys have listened to the weekend edition for a while now, you know that when he takes an occasional day off, I don't take days off. I will be here for you every week. Thursday morning, sports. Saturday morning, pop culture. I tend to indulge in some things that I know your Uncle Dave would not want to review, would not want to watch, would not want to listen to, or would not want to read. So, as we always start off here with music on the weekend edition, a little bit of an abbreviated music segment here. As of course, we're at the end of the year, so there's not really a lot of new stuff anyway to review. But I know for a fact the Conquistador is not a fan of Wilco. So this week, I will give you a brief review of the brand new Wilco EP, Hot Sun Cool Shroud. Now, I will admit, and I've said this on the podcast before, when I've kind of forced Dave to listen to a song or two from Wilco, that they are an acquired taste. And I am not even sure 100% yet if I've acquired that taste. There are some things about Wilco, Jeff Tweedy and company that are brilliant, and some things that are exasperating and infuriating. Now, Hot Sun Cool Shroud is another one of these projects, and we've seen a lot of these lately, where there were songs left over from the last Wilco album that didn't make the cut, but the boys in Wilco wanted to get them out here in a little side project, kind of like U2 did here recently with how to reassemble an atomic bomb. Now, this is a much more condensed project whereas the U2 album came out as pretty much a full album, 10 songs. You could tell a little bit of stretching it out with instrumentals and tracks that really, you could tell, remakes of songs that were on the original album, How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb. But here, you're only getting 6 songs. So this is a very, very brief journey into Wilco's world. But I will say this. For being a short project, 6 songs, not bad. At least for me. Again, I tend to enjoy Wilco to an extent. And this EP, Hot Sun, Cool Shroud, pretty much sums up everything there is to love and hate about the band Wilco. So, please indulge me for this week and for next week. Not sure next week what I'm going to review. I'm leaning towards the recent HBO Max documentary, DOCK, about yacht rock. I could probably get away with that for you next week without stepping on the conquistador's toes. So, let's get back to Wilco. Hot Sun, Cool Shroud. 6 songs. Now, the sequencing is very interesting because, to me, you've got 3 sets of 2 songs broken up. You have 2 instrumentals, Livid and Inside the Bellbones. 1, Livid. Both are short. Livid is more rockin' with a really intense, brief guitar solo, whereas Inside the Bellbones is a little more placid, with percussion and acoustic guitar and interplay there. Livid obviously appeals more to me. Inside the Bellbones, probably the least effective track here of the 6 on Hot Sun, Cool Shroud. So you've got the 2 instrumentals. Then you've got the 2 rockin' songs with lyrics, fully formed songs that are both really good. The first track, Hot Sun, and then track 4, Annihilation. Now, Hot Sun is very interesting in that it, I'm sure unintentionally, sounds eerily similar to the recent Kings of Leon song, Mustang. You'd have to listen to it. I can do my absolute best to describe it like that, but you have to really listen to the 2 side by side to understand what I'm saying here. Now, Wilco, of course, does some different things here. They have some strings in here, and the lyrics, Jeff Tweedy's lyrics, are really interesting. Again, just like the band in general, Jeff Tweedy, their leader, his lyrics can sometimes be brilliant and sometimes be frustratingly simple. And we'll get to that in a minute. But Hot Sun, very interesting mix of guitar, strings. The lyrics are really, really good on this song, where you can tell you're basically dealing with a character, a person sitting there out in the sun, wasting his life away, just drinking, watching the minutes, the days, the hours go by. So there's a lot of implications about laziness and apathy in the lyrics. This is how it ties in, of course, to the title of the EP in general, Hot Sun, Cool Shroud. This character in this song, Hot Sun, is basically just waiting to die. Not because of any disease or anything like that. Just this person is not living their life. So yes, they're sitting out there in the sun with a drink in their hand. But the cool shroud part, of course, is they're not accomplishing anything. They're not driven to do anything with their existence, the time they have on earth. So they're basically waiting for the shroud, death. They're wasting their lives away. At least that's how I read into it. This is one of those songs where I could really connect with the lyrics. This is one of Wilco's better songs that I've ever heard. And again, this is why Dave and I have been stressing this for months, if not years, on this podcast. We want to hear everything from these bands, even the stuff that they don't think was good enough, because sometimes you will find diamonds in the rough, and we have been finding a lot of them lately with unreleased tracks. I've already mentioned U2. Rat put out a Cutting Room Floor track from Out of the Cellar this year. Reach for the Sky, that was really good. Please, 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 all of you artists out there, release all of your work. Embarrassing as you might think it is, unworthy as you might think it is, because you have exacting standards. I get it, but let us judge, let us enjoy some of this work that could actually be hidden gems. And then I mentioned the other track that is more of a guitar-driven rock song on Hot Sun Cool Shroud is Annihilation. Now this has got one of the catchiest guitar hooks you will ever hear. It is an instant earworm. It will burrow its way into your frontal lobe and will not let go. Good song, very good song. Problem I have is the lyrics here are frustratingly simple, something I just alluded to with Jeff Tweedy and Wilco. Now, the one thing that they do, which is very frustrating and very irritating, and I know Neil Young does this, and a handful of other prestige artists do this. On both of these songs, Hot Sun and Annihilation, there are brief, if you want to call them guitar solos, okay, but it sounds like a 3-year-old sitting there got a hold of dad's electric guitar and decided to just start strumming it for half a minute. There's no structure, there's no hook, there's nothing. And I will never understand bands like Wilco, or like I said, I know Neil Young does this a lot of the time, where it's sloppy and messy and there's no structure to it. Yet critics praise them because these are critics' darlings. Wilco is, Neil Young is, where they can do no wrong. Well, I will tell you, this is where Wilco goes way wrong with me, is that I don't need to hear these little chaotic interludes in their songs because there is no musicality to it whatsoever. It's just, honestly, it's pathetic. It's pathetic, and it's an indulgent way to say, we can do whatever we want and you're stuck listening to it because we're a big shot critics' darling band. So there's your second pair of songs. You had your two instrumentals. You've got the two songs that are really good rockin' Wilco songs, and then the other two are more of what I would call traditional, quote-unquote, normal Wilco. The plaintive alt-country Wilco, where things are a little bit toned down. So both Ice Cream, track 3, and Say You Love Me, track 6, fall into this category. Nice, pleasant music The lyrics on Ice Cream are much, much better than the lyrics on Say You Love Me. There are strings and there's piano touches and flourishes in Say You Love Me. Out of the actual songs, let's discount the instrumentals, because I know I said Inside the Bell Bones isn't really much of anything to write home about, but that's kind of unfair because that is just a brief, short instrumental. Of the 4 actual songs, Say You Love Me is really the only one I didn't like all that much. It's okay. It's not bad, but it's a little bit of weak sauce compared to the other 3. So I know you, over the last month, you're tired of it. Your Uncle Dave and I have been fighting over whether we should use the 2.5 star, 2.5 frenzy rating anymore, because it seems like it's a wishy-washy cop-out rating right in the middle. 2 frenzies is can't recommend it, but there's still some good stuff in it. 3 frenzies is definitely worth your time, just not an all-time classic. There is a purpose and a use for 2.5. And I'm going to give Wilco's Hot Sun Cool Shroud 2.5 frenzies. The barest of recommendations is how I'm looking at 2.5 right now. I don't want to dismiss it, but I don't want to mislead you and tell you that it's something earth-shattering and groundbreaking. It's a nice, quick overview of Wilco. The good, the bad, the ugly. So a very tepid, modest recommendation for Wilco's new EP, Hot Sun Cool Shroud, here on the weekend edition from your Uncle Kev. All right, so we move on. Like I said, kind of a brief music segment here on the weekend edition. Now we move on to TV and streaming. We've kind of done a big shift here over the last few weeks with our weekly look at TV and streaming. We had all these favorite shows, these great shows that your Uncle Dave and I had been reviewing week in and week out. Of course, Yellowstone is done. What We Do in the Shadows is over. Tracker is on a break. So now we've had to shift to some different shows. Going back a little bit in time, for the most part. Now, of course, the one current show that we are both watching is the animated Creature Commandos on HBO Max. This, of course, is technically the first offering from James Gunn's new DCU. And we're going to talk more about that in a few minutes when we get to my review of the new Superman trailer. Creature Commandos, I'm enjoying it for what it is. I'll tell you what, if it was any longer, each episode's about 25 minutes. There's only going to be 7 episodes in season 1, and that's fine. Taking this in small doses is the way. I prefer this with animation. Taking animation in small doses, to me, is much more acceptable than a full-length animated movie. Now, you can pull off the recent Spider-Man, Spider-Verse movie show. You can pull off a phenomenal animated superhero full-length movie. But for the most part, I grew up watching the old 60s Spider-Man animated series, where, of course, there were 2 stories packed into a 30-minute episode with commercials, of course. Same goes for Batman, the animated series, which was the next great superhero animated show, cartoon, if you will. So I'm fine with how he set up Creature Commandos. Now, this, of course, is not for kids. This is adult-oriented animation. Cursing, sex, blood, guts, the whole 9 yards. So do not let your 8-year-old watch Creature Commandos, even though it's, ooh, look, there's the Frankenstein monster. Oh, wow. There's a weasel. No, 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 no. As a public service to you, I'm telling you, no, no, no. Keep the kids away. So again, so far so good. 4 episodes in. The 5th episode dropped this past Thursday, December the 26th. Of course, this is dropping on December the 28th, again, Saturday morning. Duh. So next week we will discuss episode 5. Now, episode 4 brought into where we expected this to happen. The Frankenstein monster has now entered into the picture more as a full-on character than just on the outskirts, as he's been part of the backstory for the bride over the first 3 episodes. And we get a little bit more backstory about the weasel. Another nice thing I like about this is the structure, where we're getting pretty much almost every episode the backstory of all the main characters on this team. I'm not going to say this is the greatest thing in the world. Don't get me wrong. I know, I said the same thing about Wilco just a few minutes ago, but trust me, completely different. Opposite end of the spectrum when it comes to pop culture here with Creature Commandos. And good news is, word just came down this week that it has been renewed for season 2 on HBO Max. Now, another animated show that I've kind of been dabbling in is Secret Level. Now, Secret Level is on Amazon Prime. Again, very, very short, 10, 15-minute animated shorts, okay, duh. Each one based on, if you want to call them episodes, that's fine. Each one based on a different video game. And I will admit, I am not a video game fanatic, so some of these video games I don't recognize, but the animation, most of it is computer generated, but the animation is unbelievably cool. It puts Creature Commandos to shame. The animation in Creature Commandos is solid, but it's a little bit stale. It's a little bit been there, done that. That's more about the story, the plot, the characters. Whereas with Secret Level, you know, you geek out with the connection to the video game, and then you just take it in visually. It's just amazing. And I've watched about 3 of them so far, 3 or 4. First one, of course, is Dungeons and Dragons. I haven't watched it yet. I just was getting ready to, and I got distracted and had to go do something else. But Warhammer is one of them. I watched one about Unreal Tournament, which I vaguely am aware of. But I'm also enjoying Secret Level. And again, you get the small doses of this. I know, you're thinking, well, that's the way society is nowadays. I'm not trying to criticize society and now how we have attention deficit disorder, and we have to take everything, satisfy me now quickly so I can move on to the next thing. I think it's more about animation. I can still watch a regular show or a movie for 8 or 10 episodes or 2.5 hours if it's a movie, and still appreciate it as a whole and not feel like I'm getting bored, especially if it's good quality stuff. I think for me it's more just animation. I need shorter bursts when it comes to animation because it almost overwhelms your senses. You have to pay a lot more attention to the screen, what's going on. You've also got the action, the story, the characters, everything else to take in. So it requires a little bit more focus. So it's a lot easier on you if you get it in 10, 15, 20-minute bursts. So next week I'll revisit more with Creature Commandos and Secret Level. So I'm digging into that animation stuff right now, as we've got a little bit of downtime here before Tracker starts up again. But as I said, I also have been traveling a little, not way back in time. Now, I watch old TV shows, I'm sure you do as well, but I'm not going to really bore you with stuff. Like, for instance, I'm watching the Mod Squad from the early 70s. I'm not going to sit here and review the Mod Squad for you, a show that's 50 years old. I'm not going to do that. So when I say travel back in time, I'm talking recently here, within the last 6 months. I got my Paramount Plus subscription booted back up again, restarted. So, a couple things that I'm watching right now on Paramount Plus that your Uncle Dave is also watching. As I discussed at the beginning of the podcast, I won't give you my full review on these shows until he's back, because I know he's going to want to chime in on them. But I can still update you. I have just started season 2 of Tulsa King with Sylvester Stallone. Got through the first episode, still very impressed with the show. Of course, one of the 7 gazillion shows out there, produced by Taylor Sheridan. Looking forward to also starting in on one of his other shows on Paramount Plus, Landman, here with Billy Bob Thornton very soon. So that'll be coming up. And then, of course, recently released within the last 6 months, like I said, again on Paramount Plus. We could probably shift this either way. We can keep it in TV and streaming or move it over to music. Again, with the downtime right now with new releases. But of course, the 3-part documentary series on Paramount Plus, based on the book that came out a few years ago. Your Uncle Dave read it. I got about halfway through it. It is a gargantuan mammoth book. So I think it's over 600 pages. I got through about 300. And I said, okay, I get it. I know the stories. I'm not trying to be arrogant, but I know most of the stories because I grew up in the 80s. I worship 80s music. So I have read a lot of other background material on the bands from the 80s. But Paramount Plus put together a 3-part documentary series based on the book Nothing But a Good Time, which chronicles the rise of hair metal in the 80s, my favorite musical genre. I know a lot of people don't like the term hair metal. I like it a hell of a lot better than glam metal, let's put it that way. So far, I'm halfway through. I'm halfway through the second episode. I'm halfway through the entire documentary series. There are a lot of things I like about it, but it is a little bit different from the book. Again, I only got halfway through the book, but 300 pages is still a lot. And the book was more of a matter of fact. The way it was structured, you want to talk about ADD. The book basically jumps from a couple sentences from this rock star and then moves on to a couple sentences or a paragraph from this rock star. And that's how the story is told in the book. Now, we do get interviews here. And a lot of impressive big names from the 80s have been in this so far. Stephen Pearcy from Rad is in it. Tracy Guns from LA Guns. We get so far briefly, we've seen Steven Adler of Guns N' Roses, many others. Very impressive lineup in terms of who they were able to bring in to do some interviews for the documentary series. Now it starts with the end of what they thought was the 70s classic rock era. They make a big deal at the beginning of saying when Van Halen was signed, that was it. The record companies weren't looking for bands on the Sunset Strip anymore. They were looking for more punk, new wave. And then, of course, you've got the impact of MTV, which is covered pretty thoroughly here. The things I don't like about the miniseries so far. Two big complaints. Number one, they use a lot of animation to try to tell some of these, stories of what happened in the clubs and on the road with these bands. I know, a lot of animation here this week, right? A lot of cartoons. But it's just really cheesy, stupid animation that really kind of takes away from the legitimacy of the music and legitimacy of that era, and kind of makes it a little more pathetic and juvenile than I think it really was. Yes, I take the 80s music era very seriously, if you haven't been able to tell. And then the other thing, of course, that creeps in here, whereas the book is more matter of fact, kind of looks at the era from a distance with love. It's obvious that the co-authors of the book care about the music like I do, love the music like I do. I'm not going to say they're clinical about it, but they report the facts. And they don't bias it, and they don't say, isn't this misogyny and drug abuse and alcoholism awesome? But at the same time, they don't denigrate the players, the performers, the groupies, the club owners, the managers. It's just matter of fact, this is what happened. This is the history of 80s hard rock and heavy metal, mostly on the West Coast in Hollywood and the Sunset Strip. The thing that the Paramount Plus documentary does that I really find irritating is they're trying to slip in the negativity. And they're trying to slip in maybe a couple minutes here or a couple minutes there, or even in the opening credits for the episodes, the 3 episodes. When they run through the opening credits, at the very end of the credits, they show the name of the series, Nothing But a Good Time. Of course, the classic Poison song. But what they do, which I find a little insidious, is it's a neon sign, and then what they do is they kind of flicker and flash and act like part of the sign is breaking. And it leaves you with the image before the episode actually begins properly of not a good time. They knock out the letters, and then they leave you with not a good time. Like, come on, you're being judgmental. And I've talked to a couple people about this, and they, of course, think I'm overreacting. And I try to explain to them, can we just get a straightforward history of the era like the book translated to a more visual media? Why do we have to have mentions of the PMRC? Why do we have to have all these mentions of the misogyny and how awful everybody was treated? And It's just negative, negative, negative. In this day and age, this PC day and age, somebody who put this together decided to slip in a little bit of their own personal agenda about, wasn't this era of hedonism just awful? Isn't it terrible that everybody was just having fun? I am not saying drug abuse is great. I am not saying mistreating women is great. But I also think America goes way too far and is way too repressed and does not allow the vast majority of the people in this country to enjoy what little time we have on this earth. And that's what the 80s were about. The 80s were about enjoying yourself. These bands worked hard. Work hard, play hard. They just happen to have dream jobs. And they enjoyed all of the fringe benefits that came along with it. And I see nothing wrong with that. You make a deal with the devil. There's a great scene in this so far, like I said, halfway through, where Tracy Guns, he was the guitar player for a brief period of time for Guns N' Roses. Slash was not the original guitarist in Guns N' Roses. It was Tracy Guns. And Tracy Guns talks about how he had to back out and leave Guns N' Roses, opening the door for Slash, because he could just see too many drugs, too much alcohol. If I stay in this band, I'm paraphrasing, but I'm pretty close. He says, if I stay in this band, I am going to die. But he made the choice. Tracy Guns made the mature choice. And he said, this cannot go on, and they won't let me. He basically implies they won't let me stay in the band if I don't indulge like them and live that lifestyle. So he made the choice to walk away, had a more modest success story, of course, getting back with LA Guns, and they're still around today. They've got a new album coming out in 2025. I believe it's called Leopard Skin. But you make your choices. Axl Rose, Izzy Stradlin, Steven Adler from Guns N' Roses chose to go down the darker path. They survived, but Steven Adler's kind of messed up. And I'm sure it took a toll on Axl Rose. Of course, Izzy Stradlin left the band and is now leading, from what I can tell, a very quiet life. We can't just condemn people, especially when they're living a life that most of us would secretly want to live. And that's my problem with the little bit of undercurrent of guilt and lecturing that has snuck into the documentary as opposed to the book. But like I said, I'll wrap this up in another week or two. Your Uncle Dave will watch it, and we'll give you our full review here in a couple weeks here on the weekend edition of Sports Frenzy 2.0. Now, of course, just debuting this past Thursday, again, December the 26th, Squid Game 2 on Netflix. So definitely, I'm sure a lot of you out there have already blown through it, because I believe they dropped all the episodes at once. Haven't double checked on that, so don't hold it against me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that they're going to drop all the episodes. They're already out there. So I will definitely be watching Squid Game 2. Again, that's one that I know Dave's going to watch, so we will have reviews, mutual reviews of Squid Game 2 in a couple weeks for you. Some TV and streaming news before we move on to movies. There are no books this week. Again, I have 2 books. Yes, I am the slow reader among the 2 of us. I'm more like normal people, like you guys. I read maybe 10, 12 books a year. And I always joke about Dave. Dave reads 497. Technically, he reads about 70 or 80, but still, that's a lot of books. One a month is good for me. I got other things to do. I got movies to watch, music to listen to, podcasts to record, people to entertain. So we'll get back into the book reviews again when The Conquistador returns. TV and streaming news, a little bit of movie news as a segue into my featured movie review of the week. It has taken forever. We just talked about Squid Game 2, which took a while to come out, but not nearly as long. Now, of course, Yellowstone we talked about last week. How long did it take for the second half of season 5 to come out on that? Well, even longer of a wait. Stranger Things, season 5, the final season. Of course, this will be on Netflix as well. They're all celebrating. Woo! We finished production. It only took almost a year, but we finished production. Now they go into post-production, and all the special effects are going to have to be created, the digital effects, of course, and inserted in. So I'm not really counting on seeing Stranger Things season 5 in 2025. Netflix, of course, implying that, oh, sure, you'll get it. I don't believe it. This is something I cannot stand with how we now consume these shows. I miss the old school days where the new season would start in September. You'd get new episodes pretty much every week until the holidays. They take a break, come back in late January, and run new episodes all the way through to the beginning of summer. You'd get 22, 23, 26 episode seasons of your favorite shows, and they would go right back in and start filming the new season. Now we have to wait 3 years, 3.5 years, 4 years between seasons on these streaming shows, and it's just absolutely fucking ridiculous. There's not enough content out there. We've had strikes that have delayed things. We've had COVID, of course. Still hearing years later about how we're still having the impact of COVID on production of movies and TV shows. Enough. The problem is, all these studios are losing money. They're cutting back on production of everything but reality shows, because reality shows, game shows, documentaries are so much cheaper to put out there. True crime shows, of course, are huge. So real, true fiction stories when it comes to TV shows and movies are suffering. And this is another example. I love Stranger Things. I love it. But I get upset when you go, okay, hope you enjoyed that season, because you're not getting any more new episodes. There'll be more new episodes, but you're not going to get them for 3 or 4 years. That is ridiculous. So now we segue into movies. Of course, Christopher Nolan, arguably the best director in Hollywood. Now, I was underwhelmed with Oppenheimer, one of the few, but I was. And I am ashamed to admit I have not seen Interstellar yet. I know it was just re-released into the theaters and actually made $11 or $12 million on its re-release. Very impressive. I've got to watch that movie. I don't know what happened. It fell through the cracks. I've seen all of his other movies, and I have loved them. The Batman, the Dark Knight trilogy, of course, Inception, Memento, Insomnia. I mean, The Prestige, just phenomenal movies. So anytime he announces he's doing a new flick, I always look forward to it. And even though I wasn't overly impressed with Oppenheimer, I still appreciate what went into it. I still think it was a very well done movie. I just didn't it didn't have any heart to me. It didn't really have characters that I cared about. It was just kind of an odd, clinical, sterile in many ways piece of history. Interesting, but not best film of the year, be all end all, like everybody acted like it was. But I digress. So anyway, Christopher Nolan, a few months ago, they announced this new mysterious movie that would be his next project, and they've been putting cast members in. They've already announced what Matt Damon is in it. Tom Holland is in it, I believe. Well, now, and I believe it's Universal, the studio behind his new movie, which would make sense. I believe he's got to deal with them. That's where Oppenheimer was produced. His new film will be, now I don't know if it's going to be set in the time of the work, or it's going to be a modern reinterpretation of the work. But Christopher Nolan's new film is going to be based on Homer's The Odyssey. That is ambitious. Now, personally, I hope it is a modern retelling. I don't know if I want to see another swords and sandals epic. I mean, we just had Gladiator 2. I'll watch that eventually when it hits streaming. I can't say as I'm overly enthusiastic about seeing it. I'll watch it. But I am intrigued and a little bit worried about Christopher Nolan's new project. And as we get more details, I'll pass them along. But it will be either a strict adaptation or a reinterpretation of Homer's The Odyssey. For those of you out there who love He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, word has come down over the past week or so that Jared Leto will be playing Skeletor. Jared Leto loves to play these cartoon comic book villains. Of course, he has played the Joker in the past in Suicide Squad. And then, because Hollywood has got to find a way to screw things up. We all know this, right? You've got the ambitious work of people like Christopher Nolan, and then you've got this. Now, Universal is always trying to reboot what they call their Monsterverse, which of course is the classic monsters: Dracula, Frankenstein, Wolfman, the Mummy. Eventually, I'm sure we're going to get, they keep talking about it, rumors float around about Creature from the Black Lagoon. Now, within the last few years, we had a new interpretation of The Invisible Man, and we've got a new interpretation of The Wolfman coming out early in 2025. Again, I'm a little bit embarrassed and ashamed to say I have not watched the new version of The Invisible Man yet with Elizabeth Moss. But I can kind of tell by some of the things I've read, and in hand, I can say it looks like this new Wolfman is going to go down the same path. Again, there are insidious little political statements being made with these movies. In both of these movies, at least from what I've seen, seem to have the notion that men are bad, men are evil, men abuse women. Whether it's as the Invisible Man or as the Wolf Man in the upcoming new version of that classic monster. It's not just the damsel in distress thing. It's more dark, abusive. Again, we can't just have fun. I'm all for a serious reinterpretation of these characters, these monsters, but when you start making it about domestic abuse and men are abusers and look at the poor women suffering at the hands of their abusers, oh, we mean monsters, that turns me off immediately. So is where I haven't watched Interstellar, mainly because I've just been lazy about it. I've been kind of actively staying away from the Invisible Man, and I will probably do the same with this new Wolfman because I don't like what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing. But this leads me into the fact that even though we just kind of recently had, Tom Cruise's version of The Mummy, which was supposed to relaunch the Monsterverse, the Universal Monsterverse. Again, there's the Monsterverse with the Universal monsters, and there's the Monsterverse with Godzilla and King Kong, and But we are getting yet another new version of The Mummy. Another, yes, reinterpretation. Been using that word a lot here over the past 10 minutes. Coming from New Line in 2026. So maybe because this is coming from New Line and not Universal, maybe we'll get something a little bit more creative and a little bit more original than what we've been seeing here in the past from Universal as they try to kickstart these franchises, these monster franchises. Now we've got some trailer news. Some of them are movies, some of them are streaming. Now the streaming ones, these are all coming from Netflix. Of course, they just had football games on Christmas Day, so if you watched these football games, you saw a lot of these ads, these teaser trailers for some of their shows and movies that are coming up in 2025. This seems to be a recurring theme with me this week. Something else that I need to watch that I have not watched yet is Season 1 of The Night Agent, which really looks cool to me. But I have not been able to find the time to watch Season 1, but I guess I better because Season 2 of The Night Agent is coming here very, very soon, about a month, I believe. And the trailer for Season 2 looks pretty good. So if you watch Season 1, you got that to look forward to at the end of January. I got to start watching Season 1. Then, of course, this one I don't know how I feel about, and the brief teaser that has now been released does not make me feel any better. And that, of course, is Happy Gilmore 2. Right now, I have the feeling, the impression that you should have just left the classic original alone. I don't want to say it's a money grab because Adam Sandler signed a huge monster multi-film, multi-project commitment years ago with Netflix. So this is just part of that. He didn't have to necessarily do Happy Gilmore 2. You guys check it out. Drop us a line, drop us a comment on our Spotify page, on Facebook, and you tell me, you tell your Uncle Dave and me what you think of the teaser trailer for Happy Gilmore 2. And then another one. This time I believe this is a movie. I don't think this is a series. Could be wrong. Happens all the time, but I think this is a movie called Zero Day. Some kind of a cyber attack that cost thousands of lives, and the government is now overreacting in order to prevent anything like it from happening again. The thing I don't like about this is, again, there seems to be politics involved here, not just within the movie, but now we're going to have Robert De Niro, one of the most outspoken, loud and obnoxious anti-Trumpers out there, playing the President of the United States. I believe the former president called back into action after, I believe during his first run as president, is when this zero-day event happened. So, an interesting premise to a point, but if this is going to end up being some kind of a lecture about government overreach and a thinly veiled anti-Trump screed, then I want nothing to do with it. And with Robert De Niro face front on this one, does not bode well, at least for me. And then we have to talk about Superman. Now, last week I mentioned the new Superman trailer was coming out. I believe that dropped last Thursday, right after we taped Weekend Edition. So now I have watched it multiple times, and now I can give you my breakdown. Because, like it or not, the new Superman movie, to me, will be the official start. Creature Commandos is, to me, the unofficial start. Superman will be the official start of the new DCU. And I am a comic book geek. Marvel has let me down so much in recent years. DC has not done much better. So we'll see what James Gunn's new DC universe will look like. Now, the things I do not like about the trailer. I am not enamored with it. I am not over the moon, goo goo gaga about it, like a lot of people out there in internet land seem to be. I don't have any problems with the Superman Lois Lane casting from what I've seen of that. Nicholas Hoult, of course, plays Lex Luthor. There's not really enough in the trailer to make a judgment. He looks fine. He looks like Lex Luthor. I think it's more about the ancillary characters involved. Now, if you guys saw Deadpool and Wolverine, and if you haven't, why the hell not? You know that part of the appeal of it is the meta references, the bringing back. I'm going to try not to spoil it, even though it's been out for so many months. You guys should have seen it by now, and I should be able to discuss it fully. But I don't like spoilers, so I will still try my best to not ruin it for you. But a lot of secondary or failed characters from the Marvel Cinematic Universe were brought back in Deadpool and Wolverine. And it almost seems in a way like what James Gunn is doing with Superman. Now, I understand he's not going to blow his wad, giving us Batman and Wonder Woman and Aquaman. But when he first announced his initial plans for the first projects, the first handful of projects for the DC Universe, I was just struck by how odd some of the choices were. Now, I'm all for bringing in some of the fringe characters, whether it's Marvel or DC, bringing them in, breathing new life into them, giving them more of a backstory. They've done it with some and it's worked very, very well, and they've done it with others and it's failed miserably. I'm looking at you, Disney Plus, in terms of failed miserably. Agatha Harkness. Oh my God. Oh my God. Anyway, back to Superman. I don't like Krypto. I have been adamant about that. I do not like Krypto. Krypto diminishes any kind of seriousness you are going to bring to the movie. So right there, strike against it for me. And we see Krypto, of course, in the trailer. Then we have Hawk Girl. Not Hawk Man, Hawk Girl. Okay. Kind of interesting. Mr. Terrific. Of course, if you watched the Flash series on the CW, you remember Mr. Terrific. Not necessarily one of the more notable characters in DC Comics history, but somehow he's going to be featured in the new Superman movie. Huh. Are we sensing a PC theme here with Mr. Terrific and Hawkgirl? And of course we've got animals to satisfy the animal lovers with Krypto. Metamorpho. Now that's an interesting character from the DC universe to bring in here. That's kind of a cool choice. So I'll be interested to see what James Gunn does with Metamorpho. And then, of course, Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner, one of the Green Lanterns. And of course, he is the most reckless and wild of all the Green Lanterns, undisciplined. He's got the bowl haircut right. I will say that. The haircut is right. I just don't know if Nathan Fillion looks like what I would expect Guy Gardner to look like. He might be a little bit too long in the tooth. Maybe they needed somebody a little bit younger. That's just me. I will say again, Metamorpho, Guy Gardner, interesting, intriguing choices. Mr. Terrific, Hawkgirl, Krypto, no thank you. So I'll be curious to see what happens here as further trailers and previews are released and what more we see of James Gunn's vision for Superman. And that leads me into my featured movie review for the week. Conclave. Conclave was, of course, recently in theaters, now streaming on Peacock. Conclave, by all accounts, is a front runner for a nomination for Best Picture of the Year when they announce the nominees for the Academy Awards coming up here within the next month or so. Conclave is about the death of the Pope and the subsequent gathering of cardinals from across the world and the election of a new pope. Now, if I stop there, you're going, oh my Lord, that sounds boring as hell, maestro. Well, the cool thing about this, based on the book by Robert Harris, by the way, who tends to put out some very interesting novels about history, and just look at his bibliography. There's a mystery involved here. Now, Ralph Fiennes plays the man in charge of running the conclave where, of course, all the cardinals are sequestered, and then they have to vote for the new pope multiple times, usually, is how it happens. You get the smoke coming out, black smoke for no selection, and then white smoke when the required number of votes are finally given for a particular papal candidate. Is that how you would say it? So Ray Fiennes is stuck trying to keep all of these cardinals together. Meanwhile, there are issues in the outside world which he has to keep from bleeding into the conclave, because, of course, they are not supposed to allow any kind of outside interference to get in the way of the election of the new pope. You've got John Lithgow, Stanley Tucci as potential candidates to be the new pope. And there's a couple other lesser known actors in there as well. And then you've got all the palace intrigue about, Ray Fiennes is finding dirt on this candidate and finding dirt on that candidate, and the personality shifts and changes that happen as days go by. And then you have a mysterious cardinal that shows up. This is my flaw. This is the one flaw I have, big flaw with Conclave. Because otherwise, it had me engaged. I was really interested in where it was going. It's 2 hours. It's a very brisk, interesting 2 hours. At least it was for me. Until the end. This is one of the movies that I hate. When a movie does this, I despise it, because you have invested all this time, and it looks like the filmmakers and the actors know what they're doing. And then the payoff stinks. The ending stinks. And that is the case with Conclave. You've got one character who is just badly written, and his story is badly interwoven throughout the tapestry of the script and the story here in Conclave. It makes no sense. I can't go into more detail because then I would be spoiling things for you. As opposed to Deadpool and Wolverine, where you should have already been out there and fucking seen it by now. Conclave is only just out for a couple weeks on Peacock, so you need time to watch it for yourself if you want to, without me spoiling things for you. But I will say, you got one badly written character, and then you've got a terrible ending where it tries to be controversial, and I would have been fine with that, but the way they decide to make it a controversial ending, questioning your politics, questioning the way you look at religion, it just comes off as kind of silly and stupid. It really does. For a movie with all these great actors and really good performances, especially Stanley Tucci's really good, Ray Fiennes is really good, because with Ray Fiennes' character, even though he's running the whole thing, he's also getting votes to become the next pope. And he's sitting there going, I don't want this. This is not something I want. Whereas other characters, other candidates say the same thing, but then they get upset and pissed off when they're not getting enough votes. So is Ray Fiennes like that? Or is he genuinely not interested, and he just wants to keep this on track and get a truly good, pious man elected as the next pope? So again, very, very good movie up until the last 10 minutes, which was just an extreme letdown. I'm giving Conclave a penalty for that. And yes, once again, I don't have your Uncle Dave here to yell at me, so I'm giving it 2.5 frenzies, just like Wilco. I give it the barest of recommendations because, again, 80% of the movie is great. It's just the other 20%, including the ending, that completely suck. So instead of it being a solid recommendation, I can only give it the barest, most tepid of recommendations. And yes, that means 2.5 frenzies for Conclave. So we're in the home stretch now, kids. Just a few more minutes to go here on the weekend edition, December the 28th, 2024. A couple little miscellaneous things to discuss, and then we'll get into moments of silence and our 4 contestants this week for the Red Foreman Pop Culture Dumbasses of the Week. I don't usually talk a lot about retail or business, but it's why we use the umbrella term pop culture for the weekend edition, is because we try to cover everything that impacts our lives in terms of entertainment and fun, whether it's a new product or, in this case, a long-running familiar chain of stores going out of business. Another brick and mortar chain bites the dust. And I guess for me, this is just really bizarre because I had one of these stores, brand new stores, they just relocated a couple blocks down the road from where they were for years and years and years. And then they put up this brand new shiny storefront, brand new store. And it was just within the last 2 years, and now the entire chain is shutting down. And that, of course, is Big Lots. So when I see stuff like that, it just makes me wonder. It makes me wonder about the business acumen of the people running the company. So you're investing all this money in new storefronts, new stores. You had to have known things were not good. I mean, I can't believe Big Lots just collapsed within the last year. There had to be some kind of a slower erosion process involved. So why are you flushing money in relocating stores? And now all of a sudden, no, we're quitting. We're shutting the whole thing down. Hundreds of stores going bye-bye. But a little sad. I wasn't like a big shopper of Big Lots. I would only go in there maybe once a year. So even though I love Amazon and I love the convenience of shopping online, and I do way too much of it, I don't like to see the brick and mortar stores go away either. By the way, something that I brought up on my other podcast, The Fortress of Rock, which is devoted exclusively to music, classic rock in particular. Another example, Sam Goody. Remember Sam Goody? Sam Goody, their final 2 brick and mortar stores are shutting down. So Sam Goody as well is going away. Very, very hard to find a music store anymore. How about some fun here before we get to the sad stuff? How about some fun? How about my nominee for the Clint Eastwood Badass of the Week in pop culture? And of course, I apologize. You can probably tell I'm still coughing a little bit. No, I will not have a fit like I did a few weeks back with your Uncle Dave, who should have stepped up and should have taken over the mic while I was in need of an iron lung. But I'll forgive him. He is my best friend, my brother from another mother. But I will apologize right now before we move on about the fact that I still got something that will not go away, and I've had it for over a month and it's driving me insane. So hopefully you will not have to hear me hacking and coughing into 2025 on all of our podcast platforms, including Spotify, Good Pods, Pocket Casts, Apple, Overcast, Castbox, Amazon Music, Audible, and iHeartRadio. And of course, do not forget to check out the Facebook page, where you can also find links to all of the current episodes of the Weekend Edition, as well as our Sports Edition. And, as I mentioned, the Fortress of Rock is also available on Facebook. I can only do that when Dave's not around, because that's my podcast. So I don't want to step on his toes with that. So don't tell him I promoted my podcast on Sports Frenzy, or he'll get mad. All right, so my Clint Eastwood Badass of the Week. Have you heard about this? Started by an Alabama woman. The ultimate Christmas prank that now I guess it's taken off. It's viral. Isn't that what the kids say? It's viral. And this Alabama woman started it, playing a prank on her husband. I don't know if you call your husband up on the phone while you're out running errands or whatever it is, and I'll paraphrase it, but you'll get the gist. As the wife will call the husband and bring up during their conversation, say, oh yeah, I had to stop and get gas. And the husband goes, okay, fine. And she goes, the wife will go, well, yeah, it was really packed. There were long lines at the gas station. It was crazy. And I got lucky, and I found an open pump that they opened just for Christmas. It was a green pump for Christmas, and there was nobody in line for it, so I was able to fill up the car at the green pump, the special Christmas pump. And of course, the husbands freak out because green is diesel fuel. It is not regular unleaded gasoline, it is diesel fuel. And so this Alabama woman, who was the first to trick her husband and has now got all these other wives joining in on the fun, I think this is an absolutely awesome prank. The Christmas gas prank. Now, of course, it's got a limited shelf life, because once people start hearing about it, you won't be able to trick your husband on it anymore. But for this Alabama woman and all of the other wives out there who have pranked their husband with this Christmas gas green pump joke, you guys are all badasses, because I love a good prank. As long as we're not hurting anybody or destroying property, go to it. More power to you. Awesome job, ladies. All right, moments of silence in the world of pop culture. Couple from the world of music. I love disco. I grew up with disco when I was 11, 12, 13 years old. That was the heyday for disco. And one of the great bands from the disco era was Chic. Of course, led by Nile Rodgers. One of the female singers in Chic, Alpha Anderson, unfortunately passed away. And then guitarist for the Replacements played guitar on a couple of their biggest commercial albums. Slim Dunlap passed away. So our thoughts and prayers out to their music fans, friends and family, of course, as always, here on the weekend edition of Sports Frenzy. We mourn the passing of creative types. But unfortunately, we have to pivot. And that means we head on to stupidity and idiocy from sadness. 4 candidates here as we wrap things up on the weekend edition for this week's Red Foreman Dumbass of the Week. I'll start off with a former president. How about that? This is just me being bitter. Okay, everybody's got opinions, and everybody's opinion matters, whether you want to believe it or not. Even the stupid trolls who live in their mom's basement and post heinous and awful crap online, as much as we would like to dismiss them, their opinion matters. As wrong-headed and vile as their opinion might be. But the one person who I'm sick and tired of hearing his opinion on stuff, I'm not talking about world affairs or the economy or politics in general. No, for some reason, we're still obsessed with Barack Obama and what his favorite movies and books and songs of the year are. I don't give two fucks what Barack Obama is listening to or reading or watching. And every time I see that pop on my computer screen when I'm scrolling through the news, and then you see the first few lines, the blurb that's supposed to tease you into clicking on more, he picks the generic stuff. He picks the critics' favorites. He never goes out on a limb and actually picks something interesting or different. He picks the crap that the critics love. Oh, see, I'm a cultural intellectual. I'm a former president, but I'm also cool. No, you're an asshat. You're a bad president, and I don't want to hear about what you're reading or watching or listening to. How come we never hear about this crap from George Bush? Or even Bill Clinton? I know we're not hearing about it from Donald Trump. But no, for some reason, Barack goddamn Obama, we've got to just focus in on what he thinks is cool, because he was such a cool president. No, he wasn't. He was terrible. The only saving grace for him is that his VP, who is now the president for another few weeks, is even worse. Is that what we're going to get now? Starting in 2025, are we going to get Joe Biden's best books and best movies of the year and best songs and best albums? God help us all. Dumbass. How about ABC News? How about ABC News? Right after they have to pay out a $16 million settlement, I believe it was $15 million in maybe in damages and then $1 million in attorney's fees. In the end, it was $16 million because George Stephanopoulos lied on national TV about the charges against Donald Trump. And again, I'm not trying to talk about Donald Trump all the time. All right? I am not a Donald Trump sycophant. But I do feel like our system in the media and in politics is so vastly slanted to one party as opposed to the other. I just have to call out this stupidity. So George Stephanopoulos, he's not biased, given his background with the Clintons. George Stephanopoulos, after costing ABC News $16 million in this settlement with Donald Trump, he gets a multi-year deal to stay with ABC News. Now, I'm sorry, but if you or I at our job, our place of work, cost our employer that kind of money, hundreds and thousands and millions of dollars, guess what? Our asses are getting canned immediately. ABC News, they reward George Stephanopoulos for reckless reporting and give him a new contract, a new deal. Congratulations, ABC News, for showing us that you are indeed truly biased and your dumbasses. Adam McKay. Do you know who Adam McKay is? Some of you might know the name. He has worked in the past a lot with Will Ferrell, Talladega Nights. The other guys, I believe, are two of the movies they collaborated on. And of course, he's done a lot of other work. He's very well known in Hollywood. That should be your warning sign right there. Dumbass approaching, flashing red lights. Adam McKay fueling the fire of paranoia. Now, of course, again, I will refer to Donald Trump. Donald Trump elected as president. Now all these Hollywood nut jobs, these leftists. And again, I am not trying to single out a particular political party, but they make it so easy with their nasty, stupid behavior. Adam McKay does an interview where he has the audacity to spread this kind of pathetic, spineless paranoia, saying that Wicked, yes, the big hit movie musical Wicked, that's approaching $400 million at the North American box office, Wicked could be banned in the United States in 3 to 5 years under the current political climate. Don, don, don. Ooh, book burning. Censorship is rearing its ugly head again. Oh, what are we going to do? Here's an idea. Number one, stop fanning the flames of panic. Because that's what Democrats in Hollywood are the best at doing. Nobody's getting put in concentration camps. Nobody's banning Wicked. It's just over-the-top, pathetic nonsense. And we've heard it from Robert De Niro and Bette Midler, and now we're getting it from Adam McKay. It's irresponsible. To me, it borderlines on libel. Because you're basically implying that it's because of the current president that we're going to start banning movies and banning books. Putting people in Rachel Maddow's going in a concentration camp. Bullshit. Good Lord, get over yourselves. You were losers in high school and you're losers now. You just somehow have this little secret club where you're all taking over the TV business, the TV news business, and the movie business. Adam McKay is a dumbass. And don't get me started on Will Ferrell. Finally, I mentioned earlier in the podcast how much I love Amazon, but not in this case. Amazon, I just found this out a few hours ago before I started to record this episode. Do you know that Amazon, I assume this is on Prime Video. I don't know if it's on Prime Video or it's available for purchase only. But Amazon has put out an abridged, that means edited, version of It's a Wonderful Life to make it less dark. Now, I'm not a big fan of Christmas movies. There are a few I enjoy. Die Hard! But I know It's a Wonderful Life is a classic. And the part of the storyline that they've taken out involves Jimmy Stewart's character, the integral part of the movie. Yes, it's dark, but it's an integral part of the movie where the character, and you guys should be familiar with the storyline. And I've never really watched the movie all the way through, but I know enough about it to know it's an integral part of the storyline where Jimmy Stewart's character basically wishes he was dead. And the angel, I believe it's Clarence, the angel explains to him or shows him the impact he's had on all these people's lives and why he should not wish himself dead, because he is needed and wanted in the world. Amazon's got an edited version where that entire storyline is taken out because it's too dark. It's too disturbing. Oh my God. Why don't you just call it the Snowflake edition of It's a Wonderful Life? I hate censorship. I hate censorship. So isn't this ironic that I just talked about Adam McKay screaming about censorship, but he's the boy that's crying wolf. Nobody is censoring Wicked. He's just trying to play the typical Hollywood left-wing political game. Here, our final nominee, Amazon, for the Red Foreman Dumbass of the Week, is literally engaging in censorship. Now, supposedly, from what I have learned, they are still offering the full version as well. The unedited version. But who would have thought we would have needed or wanted, in the moral eyes, the moral attitudes of Amazon, an edited, abridged version of It's a Wonderful Life? So Amazon, congratulations. I love you. You'll still get a ton of my money every year. But this week, you are my pick for the Pop Culture Weekend Edition Red Foreman Dumbasses of the Week. You guys drop me a line, again, on Spotify or on our Facebook page, and you let me know who you think among ABC News, Barack Obama, Adam McKay, and Amazon. Who is your choice for this week's Red Foreman Dumbass of the Week? I'm the Maestro Kevin Crane. Glad that you stuck around without the Conquistador. I tend to ramble on a lot since it's just me when I do these shows solo. But I think I did pretty good. Only coughed a couple times. We'll do this again in 7 days. I'll get you through. Probably still suffering from the New Year's hangover. Next Saturday, I'll get you through it. As I mentioned, probably going to focus a lot on Squid Game 2. We'll come up with some movie. We'll come up with some music to review and discuss. We'll have news, commentary. Hopefully we don't have moments of silence. But that's just kind of hard to avoid. It's mortality. And of course, we will definitely have stupidity and idiocy. So we will definitely have Red Foreman Dumbasses of the Week. Although, it's been known to happen on occasion, once or twice a year. A week of sanity will somehow set in and we won't have dumbasses. But that's very, very rare, given the stupidity of Hollywood. And I hate to say it, humanity in general. Thanks again, kids. And the Maestro Kevin Crane. Check out the Sports Edition, which will drop very early. Very, very early on New Year's Day, so we can give you all our New Year's Day bowl picks. And then we will do the pop culture stuff again in 7 days, Saturday morning, January the 4th. Until then, be safe, especially on amateur night, New Year's Eve. Take care of yourself. Continue to have an awesome holiday season. We'll talk again soon. Take care.